and welcome to Mimamsa Perspectives. Mimamsa, an Indic inquiry, is a portal where we attempt to contemplate on issues and ideas which are integral to understand India in a better way. At Mimamsa, we believe that India, with its specificities in terms of its distinct socio-cultural moorings, its distinct history, its political and economic socialization, needs to be studied in a specific Indian way. And therefore, we attempt to build a template through which we can study India in an authentic Indian way, and we do that through various research articles, special features, interviews, and much more. And now, as you all are aware, that currently we are in the 100th death anniversary year of Sri Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and for past 1 year, there are various seminars, books, and articles been written about the relevance of Tilak in the contemporary times, and also how Tilak makes our Indian political history so rich. This itself is enough to gauge as to what significance Lokmanya Tilak holds to Indian polity even today. The man who gave us the mantra of Swarajya as well as Surajya is rightly known as the maker of modern India. We at Mimamsa are, for this 1 week, we are going to have variety of articles, interviews to understand and reinvigorate into the ideas of Lokmanya Tilak and understand more as to what makes him so relevant and formidable even today. And to do that with us, we have today Shri Chandrasekhar Tilak sir. Rightly known as a man of many talents, Shri Tilak is basically an economist by profession who recently retired as an executive vice president from NSDL e-governance. He is a very familiar face on national television discussing budgets, economic policy, and also public policy, and is also known for conducting variety of lectures in terms of investments and future plannings. But equally important, I must say, is his other aspect, which is his deep insight into India's political history as well as into contemporary political developments. We are extremely privileged to have Shri Tilak sir today to talk about a very fundamental aspect of Tilak's personality and his ideas is his philosophy of nationalism. Sir, very welcome to our Mimamsa Perspectives and thank you for joining us. Sir, at the outset, I want to begin with the very fundamental question that for this 1 year, we are actually witnessing a lot of events and studies going on Lokmanya Tilak. There have been multiple articles written and rewritten about him. And every time we write or read something about Tilak, we find either something new or equally compelling that makes him one of the most researched Indian political leaders. What do you think makes Tilak so extraordinary?
Basically, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak is a confabulation of virtues, and most importantly, his intelligence or activism was never limited or restricted to a political movement or a single objective therein as well, only to gain an independence from the then rulers, British rulers. Point number one. Point number two, even when he was pursuing that activity relentlessly, certainly as you rightly said, a maker of modern India, his thinking was never restricted to the current status as of that time related to independent India, but he was equally thinking what should be a policy as far as after the India gets an independence as well. The classic example is that when he established that Home Rule League in 1916, along with Barrister Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Dr. Annie Besant, just imagine that in 1916, our independence was not even within the hindsight, leave aside on the view or a purview or a horizon of our movement. But in that founding as a assembly of a Home Rule League, the Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak piloted a bill or piloted the two resolutions. One was related to the defense policy of India and second was related to external affairs policy of India. That clearly shows what sort of a person he is. Point number one. And another area why he becomes so important or relevant today is that basically, although he was a man who did his movement entirely by way of a legal means or within the legal framework, although he was tried for 3 times in his life for a Rajadroha, his contention always was that first define what is Rajadroha and then I will plead whether I have committed a Rajadroha or not. Point number one. Point number two, basically, even then, he was used to concentrate on all the dimensions of time zone as far as his activities were concerned, because he was so sure that unless and until you are able to show that particular thing has been achieved, then only you are in a position to sustain the interest of the public. And unless and until people across the layers and strata of our country are involved in a nationalism movement or a nationalist movement, it will not sustain on its own. Considering that these points are becoming relevant even today, probably such characteristics or features of him makes him much more relevant and keeps him much more relevant. First makes and then keeps him much more relevant even today. And certainly this was very rare as far as our leaders. I'm not belittling anybody, please don't take it that way. But as your question is a comparative one in nature, I would like to reply in that fashion. Compared to many other of his contemporaries, as well as even the succeeders or followers, Tilak was certainly a multidimensional personality. Right from an astrologer to a reformer, right from a supporter to a revolutionary, to a person who was ready to pilot the bills, that kind of a scenario. Certainly a man which is a combination of intelligence and activism. And at that point of time, especially when our Indian political movement in general and Indian independence movement in particular was much more an armchair kind of a scenario, Tilak was much more a street vendor or a street fighter in that scenario.
That's true, sir. And this is an interesting point. You mentioned in your answer that he believed that unless the Indian national movement or the nationalist sentiments are actually precipitated into the entire strata of society, we probably will not reap the benefits. Which is why I want to turn to this point as to what his the one aspect that binds Tilak's all endeavors was his fervent fervor for nationalism, his fierce patriotism, and his distinct idea of nationalism. So he became prominent at a point when there were already ideational thought of moderates present in the Congress. They had a distinct view of Indian nationalism as well. And at that time, Tilak makes this ideational intervention of his own version of nationalism. Can you please tell us what makes his nationalism one distinct, and second, how and why it clicked with the people so much and not with the other way around?
Okay. First and foremost point which I would like to make it over here is that as far as if you have a look even cursorily at our entire Indian independent movement, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was the first person who made an extensive use of international politics and economic forces and currents and tried to integrate it with Indian movement as such. Because he was very much sure that unless and until our then rulers are pressed from the international factors as well as the national forces, we will not be able to achieve or we will not be able to progress in our pursuit of our goal for Indian freedom. Point number one. Right. Point number two, the way in which he used to put forth or put forward his views were much more comprehensive in nature, and they were not restricted to at that point of time kind of a scenario. Generally, in a commercial term, we say as is, where is. He was certainly as it would be and where it would be kind of a scenario. If you permit me, I would like to give you one example. If you see, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan has described him, of course, in a post-independence era, very nicely. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, while delivering a memorial lecture in the memory of Dr. Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan has said that Bal Gangadhar Tilak by nature is a scholar, but by necessity, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was a politician. A difference between these two verbs, and that too coming from a person of a stature of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, is and was, nature and necessity, clearly shows what sort of a gamut that particular person was having. I can give you one current example itself. Very recently in Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, our Honorable Finance Minister and Minister of State for Finance conducted the press conferences for 5 consecutive days from 13th of May to 17th of May, deliberating upon a 20.63 lakh crore package supposedly under that Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Right. One of the point thereinto that FDI in defense sector will be enhanced from in our country would be enhanced from 49% to 74%. And once we start receiving thereinto, then our effort or our endeavor will be that we will be making the maximum, to the maximum extent, a production of all our arms and ammunition within our country. If we have to make this kind of a commitment in 2020, just juxtapose it that Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was the first person that who raised his demand, that too in a Congress Adhiveshan, that too way back in 1891 in Nagpur. And at that point of time, he has not stopped himself by making this demand. But see the two connotations. Over here, as I said earlier, the immediate benefit to the people. And point number two, the immediate acquaintance to the international thing. That particular demand of having some sort of a foreign investment or a foreign technology in defense production way back in 1891 was having twofold connotation. Point number one, he said that not only all the arms and ammunition which our Indian forces at that point of time, they were at a disposal of our then rulers. So they were made to fight the wars which were even beyond the geographical limit of our country. And he was very, very emphatic that our persons must join the military because that gives him two kind of exposure. Point number one, exposure to the arms and ammunition. Point number two, exposure to the outside forces and outside geography and topography, which will be of a much relevance to us after we get independence. Point number one. Point number two, he said that as far as we as a country is concerned, at that point of time, as I said earlier, that virtually our independence was even not thought of by many. At that point of time, this man was making a demand that as far as the production of arms and ammunition in our country is concerned, we should have all the productions which are used only by our Indian forces. So the Indian people get used not only the usage thereof, but they get used to the production thereof. Now, A. Point number B, then he said that for that particular thing, if a sufficient and relevant technology is not available within the country, we as a country at that point of time should be open to accept a foreign technology as well as a foreign investment. Only thing is that we should have a clear-cut time demarcation within which those foreign technicians will come over here to make our person acclimatize and expert into that thing. Our technology and our legal agreement should be clear within the time span within which these foreign technologies would go back. Just imagine on one hand, because of that, my common youth, my newborns are getting exposure and opportunities as far as the military is concerned. So point number one as an employment opportunity, that would be assured one. And once you are having some sort of assurance as far as the things are concerned, then you are more prone to take active interest as far as the socialism and the nationalism is concerned. Point number one.
Right.
Point number two, not only military acts as your employment source, but your technology, your development, and most importantly, your entrepreneurship gets developed. This is his flavor of a nationalism, and which is becoming much more relevant today.
Right.
We are saying be local, and be global today. He was raising that demand in 1891. This point number one, which differently distinguishes him as far as his current competitors or contemporaries are concerned. And another aspect of his point of nationalism was, really, truly speaking, he was the first national face as far as our entire Indian nationalism is concerned. That trio which we call as Lal Bal Pal, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, was really turning out to be a Trimurti. His voice used to be heard not only within the geographical limit of Maharashtra, but it was actually a national face. So to answer in brief, as far as your question is concerned, I would say that we have certain series of leaders who fit into that particular bill. But the first person to fit that bill was Lokmanya Tilak, and that bill could be a leadership which is not restricted by geographical boundary, leadership which is not restricted by the ideology, and leadership which is not restricted by any time-bound prejudices. If you are having these three phenomena, he is a person who really fits that bill for the first time. Rather, he was the first leader to do so. I have replied to your question already.
Definitely, sir. And again, you raise a very important point that you cannot bracket Tilak into one particular ideology, or cannot, or into particular time, or even in geography. And I think this was even more relevant when he was making a more nuanced argument in terms of economics. For instance, when he was choosing drain theory of Nauroji over Ranades, and he was trying to give a more nuanced explanation as to why Nauroji's actually fits more into the Indian consideration, and we should not rely on the Britishers to make us self-independent. We are supposed to be independent. And I think that is again an important point. So is this again, this again shows that how Tilak, or do you believe that Tilak's this kind of work is been neglected and only a political side of Tilak is being concentrated upon? Because Tilak's insights on economics, Tilak's insight on manufacturing, and you rightly pointed out on the defense sector, is far more insightful, yet it is not out in open.
Probably because, right at the outset, while replying your question, let me say that I may sound prejudicial or castigating somebody, but that is not the case. But in order to get the crux of your question, he started with a rich legacy, but probably over a period of time, this legacy is either ignored intentionally or unintentionally. I leave it for open for interpretation. Right. But there are 2 or 3 things which has really become relevant. Point number 1 is that Lokmanya Tilak, when he started his career, if I have to put it in that way, as far as the political struggle or independent struggle is concerned, not only he, but the politicians of that generation has to start from a scratch. And and that's why, as we say it in Marathi, Payache Dagad, that kind of a scenario or that kind of a fate the politicians of his generation had. If you see that not only Tilak, but the same fate was made even by the Ranade and Gokhale to some extent. They are not getting discussed to that extent as Gandhiji or Nehruji are taking. True. I'm not prejudicial against them. But certainly, as we say that memory is short, and if there are some consecutive efforts to make them sideline into the picture, then certainly it does happen. Point number 1. Point number 2, that virtually there is a gap of 27 years as far as his date of death and our date of our independence is concerned. Because 1st August 1920 happens to be his death date, and 15th August 1947 is our date of independence. So virtually 27 years. And if we say public memory is short, unless and until it is kept on reviving by the rulers of independent India, then it will not get relevant. Point number 1. Point number 2, to be honest, and leave aside digesting, sometimes understanding Tilak's economic policies or Tilak's reformist policies becomes a bit difficult. Because as I said earlier, he was a damn in good sense I'm saying, a multidimensional person. And taking into look at such a comprehensive attitude or a comprehensive personality becomes a bit difficult. As you rightly said, that even after reading so consistently for last 1 year or so, as you rightly said in your introductory remark, every time when we come across any article or an interview or a book, we feel that basically this was not being done. I can cite how much, because to be honest, in today's service sector dominated economy, he is becoming much more relevant. One of a sentence which he has written in his editorial, probably that shows where the crux of your reply is. In that editorial which he has written way back in 1902, he has said, to say in Marathi, then I will translate it in English because his original editorial is in Marathi, in Kechri. Yes, sure, he has said, Yash he prayatnanti asta, vachanti nahi. What he is trying to imply is that if you have to be successful, then you have to keep on trying. And just by uttering a word, nobody is going to deliver a justice or a goods to you. Probably this would become a password of today's service sector where shelf life of my product is so limited. If I'm banning 59 apps overnight, then what sort of a thing? If I have to replace that market just because those products have been banned, I will not be able to achieve that space. And probably understanding this is much easier. Recognizing it is much easier, but implementing it becomes very difficult. And he has led it from it. And most importantly, what we can say that why it becomes difficult in today's era, certainly the quality and the texture and the posture of our sociology as well as politics have changed tremendously, especially after 1970, 1980s. The professionalism which he had in his political career as well as in his social and individual career is much beyond comprehension. If you realize that he is the first Indian politician who was a full-timer politician, to put it in today's context, but he was never dependent on politics as his source of livelihood. He always had a backup as far as his economic activity was concerned. Correct. And realizing this and digesting this in today's era, what we are reading in newspapers today and the prices getting quoted, probably Tilak is just only for the frames rather than from the activities.
That's true. So, and again, so when he insisted on, we should work towards our goal, and will have to put in efforts for that. It also rings to bell to his reformist attitude. I mean, the way he critiqued,
Yes.
a very nuanced critique he had of the moderates then was that if you want to reform, why not begin with yourself first? Begin your reforms from within. You set an example, and eventually your society will be prepared for a reform. We may not necessarily hurry towards it. This is very interesting. And also, I think it's important to talk. Yes, sir. You're saying something.
Then, basically, as you are talking about his reforms or the process of a reform, see, basically, as all of us are aware that he was the trade union leader as far as the labor mills and textile workers
Yes.
in Mumbai are concerned.
Yes. Yes.
And while negotiating with the mill owners of that particular point of time, as well as convincing his own union colleagues, he always used to say that when you are negotiating, ask for a moon. But be rest assured that whenever they are offering even in bismil, first we should pocket it. Once we
Right.
have pocketed it, at the same moment you should start your
New
agitation
one.
for the next.
Yes.
Sripad Amrut Dange, a union leader
Yes.
of subsequent generations, always used to quote this particular thing. So
Yes.
this practicalism, by that, not only he was giving some leeway as far as the mill owners were concerned, but
Mhm.
he was ensuring that a fighting spirit of his supporters or of those mill workers continue.
Mhm.
And basically, that's what we are observing in today's era, whether it's a corona, whether it is a demonetization, whether it is a GST, as
Mhm.
we do not have this kind of a follow-on
Mhm.
action as well as a fallback action. So that's why our sustainability is going down. So his basic contribution to a socialist movement as well as a nationalist movement is that while assuring and agitating for achieving its end goal, he has always kept the spirits in all the senses of its
Mhm.
colleagues intact. And
Correct.
probably that's the continuity force which is missing in today's era.
True. True. Definitely, sir. And so, can you also shed some more light into this apparent divide into Lokmanya's approach, in a way that he was, in a way, inspired by the conservative Hindu elements, yet he was deeply reformist individually, but when he interacted with society, he had a different approach. So what explains Tilak's this approach to someone, for a cursory reading? It is easy to dub Tilak as an orthodox, as someone anti-reformist, but he was not in that sense, as you rightly pointed out. But what explains this divide, and how to read these nuances of Tilak's personality into the social and personal life?
Basically, there is a consistent formula. As we discussed just now, that when he was negotiating as a trade union leader, he
Mhm.
used to say that whatever is on offer, first grab it and then go ahead. Although I am aiming for 100, even if I am getting 10, first let me pocket it. That kind of a scenario.
Right.
Because whether it is in today's era or whether it in the era or days of Lokmanya Tilak, our basic allergy as a human being is to change. And if he says, you have to be very careful that you can't drag on
Mhm.
consistently each and every person in each and every moment.
Mhm.
Unless and until he is mentally prepared, he will not be with you. First, he has to be with you with his psychology, and then he will be with you in his philosophy. As we say
Right.
in English or anytime, even in our languages, that unless and until you are first accepted as a person, people are having some sort of allergy to accept his views or even to listen to his views.
That's true.
And Tilak's strategy, being a complete practical personality, he used to say that if they have to accept me, first I have to accept what they are thinking. Under
Mhm.
such circumstances, I can't have 360-degree transformation overnight. It
Right.
has to be in installments. So if I have to surrender something, I don't issue, but I will be concentrating on my end goal. And probably if you look at his life, whether it is the Panchagavya or whether it is the Panchaud mission, he was ready to apologize for it because he said, by apologizing, I'm not going to lose anything. But
Right.
because of that, if the people feel I'm amenable to his views, I'm ready to listen to his views, and much more importantly, I am ready to respect their views, then slowly and surely they would start respecting my views. Because the people on the opposite side would be forced to look into this matter in such a way. It was, look, when we were insisting, this particular man has listened. So now when he is saying so, at least I should consider why he is saying so. At the end, I may agree with him or I may not agree with him. probably this practicalism of his has come, as I said earlier, because of the set of standards which he did. So as you said, this was on his social front. But as far as his personal front was concerned, or as far as his professional front was concerned, he was completely a different man altogether. It may not be out of context if I quote an example is over here. As you are also aware that Tilak used to conduct law classes.
Yes.
And probably that was his major source of income. And he has conducted it very continuously. And in today's era also, we do not find such kind of a professionalism. But that would be a more apt and relevant comparison or example in today's corona affected area. Because whenever we are discussing corona, we are giving the example of a plague of 1905. In 1905, in its Kesari on a front page, Tilak made Nachi Kelkar to publish, Narsimha Chintaman Kelkar, his deputy at that point of time, to publish an advertisement of a bigger size on a front page itself. And that ad was related to law classes. One can understand that I am advertising that my classes are starting on such and such day. But that advertisement which I am referring to, that was for saying that I am not going to restart or initiate a law classes of 1905 unless and until the plague situation recedes or comes under control. Just see this kind of a professionalism, this kind of taking people into confidence gives a certain rise. So once he has set that standard, coupled with his practicalism to go on partially accepting it and making and inviting and attracting people towards the end goal. This combination of a high moral standard as far as personal life is concerned, but equally compromising, if not compromising, at least listening kind of attitude kind of a thing, that probably made him endeared. So when we term him as a Lokamanya, probably this manyata, this acceptance is coming from combination of these two things. The people are accepting him because he has started accepting the people as they are.
That's true. And not just people, so even I think the critics or the opponents, or then contemporary opponents of Tilak also admired Tilak's prowess a lot. In fact, I recollect an incident where Ranade, I think, also attended Tilak's law classes, and he had actually praised him in a sense that because of his intellectual prowess. So probably had that edge over, convincing people and making them hear what you want to see. So it's interesting, sir.
And as we are on the law classes, although you have not questioned me on that, as we are on the law classes, I would like to make one more point related to it. See, on paper or in reality, law classes were basically discoursing or giving the knowledge about a particular law or the laws prevailing at that point of time.
Right.
But just see the composition, as you rightly said, that once Ranade attended it, but that was a regular phenomena. These are just, if you look at the scenario, who all used to attend those law classes, you would then realize that not only the students who were undergoing the law process at that point of time. So most importantly, at that point of time, law courses were such valuable that people found it easy or people found it necessary to apply for a private tuitions like this. And in today's era, we do law as a side time business kind of a scenario, unless and until you want to make a career in it. Then the persons or judges who have become a judge recently used to attend it. That clearly shows, and Tilak used to take efforts. Nachi Kelkar, who has written his biography in 3 volumes, in one of his volumes, second volume to be precise, page number 702, he has said that if you look at the ideology, he used to explain the logic to the students and interpretation to the judges, and probably that has set a precedence. Point number 1. Point number 2, once Khadilkar asked him, why you are conducting such a classes, and that too where people used to come to Pune across the country, not only within Maharashtra but even from other states as well. Then he said there are 2 or 3 different advantages. Point number 1, we are very much aware what sort of difference of opinion he had in the Deccan Education Society and other. So he had just come out of it. He said, now I am on my own, so I can decide the way and content on which I want to teach. Point number 1. Point number 2, he said, because of that, I will come in contact with the people across the strata, across the country. So it is much more easier to know the ground reality there from such independent and impartial resources rather than depending on a media or some hearsay. And just imagine that all such sources or his students of law classes at one point of time has become his colleagues as far as his freedom movements are concerned. So looking at it from the economic activity, it sets a standard. Looking at it as a cumulative activity, it sets a standard. So looking at a single activity from such a comprehensive view is probably a sine qua non of a personality and of the Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar.
True, true, and that's why probably we probably have a very few people who are scholars as well as mass leaders. I mean, there were very few Indian history, and
Very
certainly Tilak is one of
true.
them. So, but do you think the moment in 1920 when Tilak dies and the Congress's entire leadership and the things are taken over and it changes, do you think that realism of practicality of Tilak sort of recedes in the Congresses as well?
Uh, Certainly, certainly. While replying, let me add a disclaimer clause right at the beginning. Even
Yes.
otherwise, I have worked in SEBI, so old habits die hard. This is not to criticize anybody, because
Right.
let us be very clear that if you look at, it is always said, as Ayn Rand has said in her novel Fountainhead, that man is a product of his premises.
Premises,
So
yes.
certainly the background in which Tilak was born, Tilak grew, Tilak nurtured his own dreams as well as his career and independent movement, certainly differs from the leaders of the subsequent generation.
Mhm.
Because Tilak is born on 23rd of July 1856. In 1857, we have our first war of independence.
Yes.
In 1857, first stock exchange of our country was established. And in 1857, first university of our country was established. So one way economic liberty, another way is education liberty, and third way is a political liberty was initiated. In that era, this particular man, why I cited these three examples, because Tilak in his individual capacity as well as his social capacity was associated with all these three fields.
True.
Tilak was an astute stock market investor. We can have a separate session altogether on that. Tilak and his economic activity. Bombay Swadeshi Cooperative Store is a predecessor or a birthplace for many current capital market prices. But that is not a topic for the day. Compared to that, the subsequently, once after 1920, when Tilak died and Gandhi era, to put it in that way, in a common parlance, started in our Indian political scenario, let us be very honest that two periods are not comparable.
True.
Because the two personalities itself are not comparable. Because as Tilak, Gandhi himself has said that Tilak is so deep that you can't make even a 1% out of it. As Savarkar has very rightly said, at the time of writing a forward of his book Mazani in Lokmanya Tilak, he has said it in Marathi that दिवसा पाहिलेले टिळक आणि रात्री भेटलेले टिळक याच्यामध्ये महदंतर आहे. Because during the day he used to be a social phenomenon. The basic difference between Tilak and his leaders of the subsequent generation or in a post-Tilak era is that Tilak was completely and openly a friend, philosopher and guide as far as our revolutionaries or a Krantikarak movement are concerned. Right. And that's why we see whether it is the Chafekar Bandhu, whether it is Savarkar Bandhu, basically he was very clear that he used to be openly with them. But barring the exception of Lokmanya Tilak, not a single leader in pre as well as post Lokmanya Tilak era has stood so fiercely along with the revolutionaries.
That's true.
So probably then rulers or then our British rulers of that era were not able to put Tilak into a certain comprehensive or a framed situation, because he used to act completely and the way which the British rulers can't even imagine. Comparatively, the leaders of the subsequent era were not that multidimensional. In personality, they may be, but as far as their activity or their movement of independence was concerned, it was not that multidimensional as Tilak's used to be. So the then intelligent British rulers were able to put them into the frame. Under such circumstances, our activities become predictable. Because of that, they become also predictable. Because Britishers started getting much more gestation period or a thinking period as far as the setting the activities are concerned. I am not belittling anybody. Please don't take it that way. True. But you would realize that a person, on one hand, who is entering the assembly and raising you the pointed question that when a British Prime Minister gets rupees 5,000 as a salary, why his deputy, that is Viceroy of India, gets 20,000 rupees as a salary. So he is raising that question over there. Once he goes out of it, he explains the Female Code, and in the night, he is himself personally involved as far as preparation of these pistols and bombs are concerned. That kind of a multidextrousness subsequent leaders of our generation doesn't have. Point number one. It is probably because the Britishers were also in a much more acceptable position, because they were knowing that they will not be able to push a third or a fourth gear as far as this movement is concerned. Point number one. Point number two, even otherwise, because of the international factors, British rulers were under some pressure. Because of the First World War 1914 to 1918, you would have seen even in that span of 1918, 1920, when really Tilak era was coming to its end, because of his Mandale, post-Mandale, because of his diabetes, and most importantly, that Thai Maharaj Prakarana of that prolonged Thai Maharaj court matter. Basically, he was losing that kind of a touch. And then subsequently, the global crisis of 1929 and the Second World War from 1935 to 1944. These three factors, British Empire realized that in today's, that particular era, it is difficult to control anybody geographically. This advantage was available to all the subsequent leaders. None of was available to Lokmanya Tilak. This is number one. Number two, after you see that Tilak was much more some sort of a person, as you rightly said in one of your earlier questions, that it is not that each and every person, leave aside his party, even outside, he were having the critics. Comparatively, the extent, quality and quantity of contemporaries of a subsequent Congress leaders were not that valuable or that influential as they were in case of in the era of Lokmanya Tilak. Point number three. And point number four, to basic difference that during his entire active phase of Lokmanya Tilak as a political leader, to be honest, although we were trying very hard, I'm not belittling anybody, but to be honest, even those persons within their own minds were aware it was achieving independence in our lifetime is just not going to happen. Whereas the leaders, especially after 1935, 1942, became very clear that it's a matter of time. It may be 1947 or it may be 1948, but at least it was within the sight. And once your end goal is within the sight, naturally you are in a much better, much positive framework rather than the aggressive framework. And for a third party ruler, opposition party in a receptive mode is much more acceptable compared to an opposition party in an aggressive mode. That kind of a scenario. So probably it was more a game of circumstances. It was more a game of personalities, and naturally the change practices altogether, especially after the independence we got.
That's true. So it's important, I think that is a very nuanced explanation as to how leaderships also respond to their contemporary scenarios, and they also shape the leadership approaches. But now if we sort of moving towards this part, as to if we want to contextualize Tilak today, his ideas today, into the political sphere, obviously the realities have changed subsequently, but some of his ideals as to how do you respond to your opponents, or how even the scholarship in responding, because Tilak and Ranade had a lot of divide, and the way Tilak even used to quote Dharma Shastras and all those scriptures to respond back to Ranade, it was a very that's what made him what he was. But that kind of rigor in politics today is somehow missing across the spectrum, if I may say that. But which is why I think it is more important for students like me to study Tilak more and more. But in doing that, what do you think stands out most importantly with the Tilak's personality, and how, if for instance, if I were to just put it this way, that if Congress was to learn or BJP was to learn something from Tilak's dexterity, what advice do you think Tilak would give to these two major political parties? Hello.
Judicial, as far as Lokmanya Tilak is concerned, probably, although I do not share a family tree, I do share a surname, so that emotional bond might be there. But barring this, there is one reason that why Tilak is not that much appealing or relevant in today's context, whether it, as you rightly said, whether it is a Congress or a BJP or for that matter anything. First and foremost, the contour and context of political movement in our country, or a political setup, to put it that way, because it is no more a movement, now it's a setup. Political setup has changed completely, especially in last 10 to 20 years. As we have seen, maybe because of a result of a coalition governments consistently, which we had at our central government level as well as many state government level, now probably a distinguishing line or a differentiating line between the two political parties have completely vanished. Point number one. Point number two, the economic reforms which we initiated in our country in 1991, so now almost it is 30 years. You will realize that from 1990 to 2020, in 30 years, we have virtually seen the political central governments of various combinations of a political color. Jocularly, I say that each and every political party worth its salt has been a part of a central government at one point of time or the other, barring probably the exception of Maharashtra Navanirman Sena, because it has never contested the parliamentary election with that rigor. But if you would see that the political colors might have changed, but the color of economic policy has not changed, because now there is not much of a differentiation between the economic policy of a particular political party and the economic policy of another political party. That doesn't used to be the case when, as far as the Lokmanya Tilak is concerned. Point number one. Point number two, as our country's national economy has even otherwise getting integrated with the international economies more and more, the fluctuation may be there as far as the current account deficit is concerned, or a current account surplus is concerned, or my political or a commercial combination is concerned. That may differ. But most importantly, what is happening is that now politics has become a profession, whereas it was a mission as far as Tilak and his subsequent generation was concerned. And once you start moving from mission to profession, then your practicalities and shop and establishment act applies more rather than your contract and a concept act. I may sound critical, but to be honest, now politics in true sense of terminology has become a profession. In that case, they should have become much more concerned and aware as far as the international currents are concerned. But one thing is very important, that even otherwise, the people today or the politicians of today are reaping the benefits of a foresight of Lokmanya Tilak. We have seen that when Narasimha Rao when Chandrasekhar became a prime minister of our country in 1990, he appointed Yashwant Sinha as a finance minister. He was not a born politician. He was a bureaucrat, a senior most IAS officer who joined politics at that point of time in a JP's movement kind of a scenario. When Narasimha Rao became a prime minister and our country was really facing the economic problem, he appointed Dr. Manmohan Singh as a finance minister, who subsequently became a prime minister. In this current situation, Narendra Modi has appointed as Jaishankar as our external affairs minister. He had just retired before that as our foreign affairs secretary. So now this kind of a technical expertise is available at the point of time, which was not available to Lokmanya. And this is the basic difference between Gandhianism and Lokmanya Tilak. Lokmanya Tilak is a proponent of Swadeshi, Swarajya, Rashtriya Shikshan and Bahishkar. But he has never dissuaded anybody from joining a political service or a government service, whether it is as a bureaucracy or as a military. We have heard many times the example of C.D. Deshmukh, that after passing out with as a topper in a SSC exam, he approached Lokmanya Tilak and said that now I want to be associated with the freedom movement. And Lokmanya Tilak told him that nothing doing, you are going to study further, because today or tomorrow our country will become independent and we will need the knowledgeable person to run the country. Because of that particular segregacy, whether it is military, whether it is bureaucracy, it has remained non-political in our country, actually till the time they are in career. But afterwards, they are available to them. And probably because of that, these people feel that we can get it done on a contract basis or outsource basis. This kind of information or a facility was not available to Lokmanya Tilak. Point number one. And it may sound derogatory, but at the risk of accepting something, let me put it this way, that probably during that generation, not only Tilak, as you have started these names repeatedly as far as our interaction of this day is concerned, that if you look at Gandhiji, if you look at Ranade, if you look at Gokhale, if you look at Agarkar, if you look at even for that matter Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, basically these persons themselves, not only by birth, but by instinct, they were multidimensional personalities. Unfortunately, that particular trend is not continuing in our country. And in a worst case definition, we are becoming professional as far as the politics is concerned. Point number one. And point number two, in today's era, because during that particular phase, our nationalist fervor or our national economy was such that we were never at a center as far as the global economy or global politics is concerned. We only by our efforts or whatever it is you want to say. Now that is not a scenario. We might not have become a center, but certainly we are on the radius of it.
Yes.
And under such circumstances, such kind of expertise is available at a drop of a hat. Because providing such kind of expertise is becoming easily available, then people are saying when such things are available in market, why I should integrate it? Probably it should have been other way around. Because as we say in Marathi, Aikawa Janacha Karava Manacha, but for that matter, even mind is getting sold. Otherwise, what is happening in Rajasthan today would not have been a scenario.
That's true. That's very nicely put, sir. I think those are important words that, even if you may not directly contextualize, but the life and the way Tilak has lived, I think it's important for all of us to at least socialize, and like we say in Marathi, that this sanskar on our individuals should
Yes.
happen, so that we at least aim to go somewhere near him. Thank you
Yes.
very much, sir. That it was a very invigorating and very insightful discussion with you. I'm sure all of our viewers would have enjoyed it. Thank you all of you for joining us today.